Well, hi Jamie, and welcome to the SOOT podcast. Can you
Hi
tell
there.
us, hello, can you tell us what your career history is and how you got interested in occupational therapy?
Yeah, sure, Lorna. I got into OT through kind of like I think a lot of people do through a kind of sideways route. I kind of came in having done a few other, I wouldn't say careers, that's to make it sound a bit grand, but a few other kind of worked in a few other professions. Um, done sort of bar work, done local community radio, done some sort of hospitality stuff, and uh, then through kind of personal and personal exposure to sort of some health challenges, sort of friends of mine and personal ones, I yeah, I came across sort of desire to want to work more in the healthcare field, and I spent a year or so in mental health kind of supported living accommodation in London in the UK, and that opened my eyes up quite a lot to, you know, some of the ways that people can work. It wasn't in an OT role, I was a support worker, but kind of gave me that professional angle, having seen friends with difficulties, but then sort of worked in that area. Um, so yeah, so I sort of did that and just thought it was a little bit more, yeah, a bit corny, but a little bit more meaningful, a bit more interesting, than, you know, working another bar job. And so yeah, I did an access course, and then went to university and ended up in OT actually. And also I'd also kind of, I suppose there was a point in my life where I didn't know what I want to do at all. And I remember being given like an A to Z of like a career Bible, like an A to Z of careers, and just flicking through it and knowing what a, I don't know, a banker was or a farmer, and then getting to O and not knowing what occupational therapy was. So yeah, combination of lived experiences related and sort of stumbling across it really.
And since qualifying, what sort of areas have you worked in?
So I've worked in initially in a kind of what they call in Bristol kind of rapid response team. So that was working quite acutely in the community with nurses and physiotherapists, and that was sort of going into homes and, reacting to kind of incidences as they were happening, trying to prevent hospital admissions, but also, to some extent try and engage people in meaningful occupation. But ultimately it was more, it was more of an acute end. So I did that, and then I worked briefly in rotations, trauma orthopedics, and sort of medical respiratory. And then I went to work at a brain injury rehab unit in this neck of the woods, which was really interesting. And having done some sort of stroke sort of type neuro type placements as a student, I was quite keen to get into neurology. Got a bit burnt out through that. Quite intense being an inpatient neuro rehab facility. Really interesting. Really glad I did it. Um, but wanted something a bit different. And then I went into pediatric, sort of like a council role. So a little bit more adaptations, major adaptations, disabled facilities grants, equipment provision, trying to sort of set a child up. Um, which was also interesting, but got a little bit, there was a lot of time in, in the council office and then going to a couple of visits a week.
Mm.
So it was almost the other extreme to sort of seeing 5 patients a day in an inpatient neuro centre. So I did that, and then and now I currently work back in neurology, but in like an outpatient facility. So yeah, done a few bits.
Thank you. So, as well as your ongoing clinical work, you've started, so you're the founder and director of the Occupational Therapy Hub. And was that 2017 you started that?
Yes, yeah. I started that yeah, in August 2017. So I've been going for about 7 years now. Yeah.
Were you a
Uh,
student at the time, or had you qualified?
I was actually a student at the
Mm,
time. Yeah,
yeah,
you've done your homework.
I have.
Um, yeah, no, it was a kind of a side thing that came out of, well, you may be about to ask me a similar question, but it kind of came out of the kind of challenge of being a student alongside having a side job and then having to kind of you're doing your essays, you're doing the research and sort of having to pull from this vast sort of world of the internet and sort of wanting a space where, me as a student, but then obviously as a clinician would be able to kind of find everything in one place. And so that's sort of, yeah, that's how it kind of started in a nutshell.
So for someone that's never heard of it before, what is the Occupational Therapy Hub?
So I mean, principally it's an education platform. It's a website. It's also an app that you can download. Um, so that is our kind of product, if you like. But what do we do? It's a global community platform for clinicians, students, members of the public, anyone. Your brother or your cousin could join it if they wanted to. So it's sort of a very open platform for learning. It's a sort of education, sort of continuing professional development, and sort of networking collaboration space. So we have anything from podcasts to articles written by members to research you can access, downloadable kind of resources. And we've last year or the year before we launched some sort of online courses as well. Yeah, and there's videos, there's webinars. So it's kind of like a multimedia space for therapists and those wanting to become therapists or those interested in our world to learn essentially.
And just to open that
And
up. Mhm.
it's very much kind of I would just say it's very much kind of it's trying to be a community space because okay, it's online, but um it's the articles and the emails we get, a lot of the content is driven and created by our members, which makes life a little bit easier for us in the team to not have to recreate all the content. It's a beast that keeps needing to be fed because our product is content and resources and all of that. But it's really nice because it's representative of OTs around the world. And yeah, it's a globally used platform. Yeah, really yeah, proud of it, but it's taken a lot of work, evenings, weekends, and then some. So but yeah, it's going strong.
And there's a lot of resources, isn't there? It's in a wide variety of subjects as well. And you mentioned the CPD courses. I mean, the ones I've seen recently, you've got positive psychology, sleep, ADHD, trauma, posture. So it's very diverse with what you've got on there.
It is, yeah, good research again. Yeah, I mean, essentially, the world of OT, and that's kind of the blessing in terms of why, um, its potential is vast because obviously the world of occupational therapy is so diverse in terms of, where we can work and what we can do. So, um, that lends itself, then I don't know if it was the radiology hub or something, and that might be a bit more limited. Radiologists would probably argue otherwise, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so there's a lot of resources, and we're trying to. I mean, those courses are fairly in their infancy, but we wanted to kind of provide something in that space that people could kind of learn and then sort of test themselves on and then be given a certificate. Because a lot of our content today has been a bit more sort of reading something, watching something, downloading something, and it's a little bit more interactive. So yeah.
And how do you get your content? Do you write some of it, or do you reach out to other people that you want to write something for you, or wait for submissions to come to you, or a bit of everything?
Yes, the latter, I guess. We have an email address. We have, we're very active on social media. So we have, we have members will write in to us and say that they've got something they'd like to contribute. And then, yeah, that's a large chunk of it. But obviously we drive the direction of what we want to develop. And I say we, so there's a team of us. I believe you might be going to ask me something about that later. But there's a team of us, and we kind of coordinate things. And we produce some of our own content. Obviously, we're trying to grow a bit more homegrown content as well, so that it's sort of because there is what we're trying to do is trying to create a platform that is as accessible. So trying to break down kind of financial and geographical barriers, because we know there's a hell of a lot of learning that can go on from therapists around the world. Obviously acknowledging different cultures, but actually we're all humans, we're all trying to get people better. So we're trying to break down those geographical barriers. Obviously, you have your professional bodies in the UK and other countries who are sort of provide a lot of information and guidance, but we're trying to sort of open it up a bit wider. And then financially as well, the hub is always and always will be will always have a free membership to it, which again some professional bodies don't have. So we're not trying to be a professional body, but that's sort of where we're at. And the flip side is, as more time goes into it, we need to sort of we grow more resources ourselves. That's time. And having just become a dad, it's sort of you increasingly realize how precious time is. So yeah, there is an upgradable membership which members can sort of purchase on a monthly or an annual basis. But again, it's quite affordable, we think. So
Was that always part of the plan when you started off to have the sort of different tiers of membership?
no, I mean, to be honest, no, to be honest, it grew very, very organically. I kind of, having worked in sort of media and having had quite a sort of creative eye, I kind of, had this idea and I went online, I started looking up, how to create a website, and then I found a website provider, and then you just start exploring what sort of possibilities there were. So no, we didn't introduce a paid membership until a couple of years ago, and that came about because it was doing well, but actually it was taking up so much time that actually it needed for it to be sustainable. Like today's day, I work on the hub on a Tuesday. I don't work clinically, and for me, that's taken time for me for that to happen. So yeah, it's growing, but it's taken a lot of time up, and but yeah.
Are you able to say more about how you started it? So you obviously you're saying you had to learn about running a website. What was your first content? How did you start populating the website?
Oh, going back now, 7 years. I suppose, yeah, I kind of played around with the, with the kind of what do you call it? It's like a website host. It's you go onto a website and then you sort of drag and drop things and move things around, and everything on the hub I've designed. I mean, I don't know code. It's not coded, but it's sort of like I don't know, like doing a pattern on a PowerPoint, but and then you shift things around, and then you So it started off with more kind of blogging, I suppose,
Mhm.
which and then I had a forum, both of which sort of still exist. And the I don't like the term blog because it's sort of, to me it's I don't know, they're 10 a penny, and not to belittle a blog, but there's quite a lot of time and referencing that goes into our what we call our therapy articles. So they're referenced, they're a bit meatier, I think. So,
Mm.
but yeah, so we kind of started off with forums and articles, and then kind of broke into sort of having like a video library. Then, I started hearing about different podcasts around the world. Obviously, Sorority Podcast is now featured, and so we started growing a kind of catalogue of podcasts that people could listen to. Yeah, and then other bits kind of came along the way, really.
And has the hub gone down any routes that you hadn't planned or expected? Any surprises that have come up along the way?
Um, I th I was thinking about this. Obviously, the questions ahead of time. I I don't know. I think because it did develop very organically.
Mm.
I didn't have a sort of 5-year plan or anything. So unexpected. No, I mean, I think, I'm really pleased with particularly the therapy articles has done really well, and how many we've got, and how much I didn't expect maybe to be so many people around the world wanting to contribute to that. So that's positive. I mean, a few years ago, I didn't think we would be launching an app, which we've been able to do. Uh, yeah, and then it's taken us to kind of like, it's taken us to different parts of the country, and we've been to a few events, kind of conferences and stuff. So that's come up, and I've been able to, not intentionally, but having sort of developed this network of it's about 20,000 members now. It kind of, you get sort of talking to some more prolific or established OTs. We had Dr. Jennifer Creek come to the our stand at the OT show a few years ago, and I get communications from other sort of more experienced professional clinicians than myself. So that's really exciting. Yeah,
Thank you. And any challenges that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now?
I think the just the juggling act has been just a sort of a chronic
Mm.
sort of challenge, sort of occupational balance, all of that, and so yeah, sort of trying to sort of I've got a real passion for what we're doing, but it's it's sort of trying not to. I'm one of these people that kind of can get into something. I can, you talk about flow when you're studying occupational therapy, and I can get into quite a flow when I'm sort of designing a new part of the platform or whatever, but it runs away and I haven't eaten, or the bins need taking out, or there's a baby crying or something. So, it's sort of trying to juggle that. The other challenge I'd say is, so I talked a lot about me, but there's been a fluctuating size of a team, and we just added 2 new members to the team, but we've kind of gone in 2017 from, I think, about five of us. It went up at one point to about 15, dotted all over the world. And then it's dropped back down again. So it kind of fluctuates, but the challenge has been sort of, growing the platform and the content, which, is member facing, but then also sort of wearing another hat of kind of team. And so because the team are volunteers. So, like myself, I've only just started to be able to kind of cover a day's worth of lost employment by wages a week, but for 6.5 years I was doing this on the side. So I guess what I'm getting at is the kind of voluntary nature of it alongside a clinical job is difficult in itself, but also kind of retaining people. So, we've got some really great team members, and we've also lost some great team members. And obviously from their side, I completely understand that other priorities come about when you've got bills to pay, etc. So, yeah, that's a challenge.
And what are the roles
But
that you're...
Sorry, go on.
I think we've got a bit of a delay, haven't we? What's the roles that the volunteers are doing in the Occupational Therapy Hub?
So we've got a range of, because of the sort of vastness of the platform, some team members work on like a part of the site. So Abigail's in the UK and she works on the therapy articles kind of portal, we call it, the sort of section. I mean, it's a web page, but it's a section. And then we've got someone called Tia, who's based in Jakarta in Indonesia, and she works in pediatrics. So she's kind of our pediatrics lead. So some team members sort of take like an OT specialism, and then some of them prefer to kind of look after part of the platform. And we've just got a new development and sort of technical lead, because so much of what we're doing is sort of requiring those technical skills, and we'd like to see how we can push the boundaries. So, and we've also then just got a doctor who is not an OT, a medical doctor who is based in UAE, and she's joining us to sort of expand our courses. So yeah, quite varied roles.
Thanks.
But I mean, I say to them, they're very much their kind of little commitment was sort of very expectation management. I'm very aware people have other commitments, so it's we meet every month and we have our different channels that we speak in. But one day, who knows, we might have a big office somewhere.
And what have you learned about occupational therapy through running the hub? Because you're exposed to such a huge variety of information.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel it's a little sort of broad and not very deep because of having to kind of juggle so many hats and parts of the site. But just I suppose just a variety of what's out there, and also I've learned a lot about, so I suppose the opportunities, possibilities, sort of non-traditional roles. I'm still, compared to some therapists in my sort of early years of my career, so and that's why I'm not there are so many far more experienced therapists than me. So again, it's partly why the hub is very much driven by our members, because I just appreciate there's so many perspectives that we can learn from. I've forgotten the question now.
What you've learned about occupational therapy through running the hub?
That was the other thing. So I have learned also, I suppose, beyond the OT role and remit, actually, I've learned quite a lot about how other countries' sort of healthcare systems work. In particular, I mean, having explored the kind of analytics of the kinds of people around the world who use the hub, it gets you interested in or informs you kind of which parts of the world seem to have more of an affiliation with the profession. And you know, from the Hub's point of view, it's, we're very much UK, US, Canada, Australia, sort of the Anglo-speaking countries, India, and then loads of other countries after it. But sort of trying to, it's been interesting to learn, where OT is big, where it sort of is lesser known, and then the systems within which therapists find themselves. So obviously with the US system being very much kind of driven by, insurance providers, and there's a lot of questions that go on our forums and discussion groups about, billing and all these things that luckily I don't have to think about so much. And then in Australia, they have their own something called NDIS, and they have their own sort of disability sort of scheme there. So yeah, just sort of learning how people access the care that we provide, and probably a lot of other things, but those are the things that stand out, I suppose.